Oh, wow. Saw it twice, so I was like, oh my god.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up, like a headlight, but there was nobody there.
Oh, it's just disappeared.
Hello everybody, welcome to Truth Proof on a Sunday night. I hope you've all had a great weekend. I've not had a bad one myself, and great to see wow, well over 100 people in chat already. Thanks for the support, guys. And it was just going to be me originally tonight. Just I've got a pile of reports which we'd have never got through, but we were going to sort of dissect them, and you guys would have asked me some questions. But I've been talking to a man over the last few days who's had a bit of a life-changing experience with something that he's seen in 2021. So get your thinking caps on, guys, and what do you think about flying triangles, black triangles? Because that's where we're going to go. And questions in capital letters, please. And before we bring this fella on, let's just have a look who's in chat. We've got Jojo, Mike Disabled Welshman, Linny's in, Mrs. Linny, Mia Girl, Steve Collin, Martin Abbas, Steve Tees. Let's have a look. We've done Steve Collin. Dragonborn, good to see you. And I hope everything goes okay there. You know what I mean. Drew Hollings, Tino, O'Connell, and there's Farm. Oh, Zeno's there. Hi, Hezo, Pete. Is that Pete? I think that'll be Pete from the Cliff Tops. Good to see you, Pete. I'm amazed you're here. And Alison, thanks for doing moderating for us, Alison. I know Gemma's doing it as well. And I think Rivington Pike, as in Lee, will be in. Paranormal Visitors. Now then, who's that? It's Lee. So that's brilliant. And Deb Shaw, good to see you, Deb. I'm going to stop rambling. I'm going to bring on Mark Leaper, and he's going to share with us something that's been quite life-changing for him. So here we go. Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Paul, yourself?
Oh, very good. Absolutely brilliant. And you're going to make my night easy because I know that you've got an incredible story to share. And like I told you earlier, because we will get some questions, if we don't get through it, we'll resume next week or the week after. Yep. So just a little bit about you before you jump into this then, Mark.
53 years old, born in London in 1972. We moved down to Hampshire when I was about 2 years old, basically. So I've been down in Hampshire for 52 years, basically, yeah, more or less.
And prior to having this sighting or this experience, what were you interested in the unexplained?
I've always been interested in like science fiction, Star Wars, stuff like that. You know, anything that goes fast, boys' toys, you know, and stuff like that with engines, helicopters, planes, you know, everything like that. You know, it's just boys' toys and that, isn't it? I've been following Disclosure in 2021. I was following Disclosure. Yeah, I was really quite interested in it basically, and it may come up a bit later in the show, but it was the height of COVID when this happened. The skies were really, really clear. There wasn't a lot of stuff flying about, basically, you know. Yeah. And I don't know if it's worth saying, but my theory on the whole COVID thing, I'm an anti-vaxxer. I'm not a vaxxer.
Well, we will not talk about that anyway. But just walk us into the experience, the sighting.
Okay, right. Well, the actual nuts and bolts of the event, which is in Colin's book, basically, is just the nuts and bolts of the event. It was Monday, the 30th of August, 2021, which was a bank holiday weekend. So it was a nice long weekend. I was due to go back to work. I did go back to work the following morning. My head was in pieces, completely shattered. I didn't stay at work for very long that day. Really? And I ended up walking out of that job a few days later. You know, I walked away for the best job I'd ever had in my life because my head was just so shot. But I've been out in the garden. I've got my little man cave in the garden. I'm out there on social media, just minding my own business. I was doing some stargazing that as well. Obviously, when I look to the sky, I'm not looking for airplanes. I'm looking for anything else, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do spend a lot of time stargazing. You know, I was wondering what's going on. You know, and I was taking notice. Anyway, so come to the end of the night, the phone's getting low on charge. Basically, it's time to go in, basically, because we're going back to work tomorrow. And this was about 10 to 11 at night. And so I've just gone into the back of the bungalow. My bedroom was at the back of the bungalow. There was not a lot going on. It was a nice, beautiful night. So the windows open, and out where we're in Hook, it's a really quiet village. Really quiet. You know, you can't see any street lights.
And this is the village of Hook, I believe.
Hook in Hampshire, near Basingstoke.
Close to an RAF base, yeah?
That's correct. Yeah. 4 miles as the crow flies to RAF Odium. Okay. Now, RAF Odium is home of the Chinook. Has been for 100 years. Well, not for it's been active air base for 100 years. Just been celebrating 100-year anniversary. But anyway, so I'd only been inside for a couple of minutes, and there's not a lot of noise going. It's really, really quiet. The windows are open, and then all of a sudden I hear a Chinook thudding away in the distance. Okay, which is not uncommon because we've got the base 4 miles away. They fly about all the time. But this was unusual. You know, I hadn't really heard them a lot during COVID, basically. And now all of a sudden, for this time of night, you know, a quiet night, I can hear a Chinook. But the Chinook is not coming and going. It's not under load. It's loitering. You know, from the sound, all my senses telling me it's loitering. It's either landed, it's hovering, or it's waiting for something. Right. And this went on and on and on, which seemed like a considerable, far too long. You know, for if it had been coming and going, I'd no reason to go outside. But it was just hanging about. Now we've got from where we are in Hook, where Odium is. This sound was coming from the direction of Reading, so it would have had to come right over. I knew this when I heard it hovering. If you're a Chinook hovering in location where we are, Odium knows something about it. There's no doubt about that. Basically, no doubt about it. And it was just loitering and loitering. I was like, what's going on? You know, and now, knowing that if I can hear a Chinook there and Odium's over there, it's coming over, basically. So I thought I'd go back out into the garden, and I thought it'd be pretty cool to see a Chinook, you know, at low level. You know, I'm not that much of a nerd where I want to take my camera out and film it. I went outside to see a helicopter, you know, so I thought it'd be pretty cool. So I've gone outside, and this thing's still loitering. And slowly, it's like the sound started coming towards my direction, basically, because I'm basically in between where the sound's coming from and the RAF base. So slowly, this noise is getting towards me to the point where it's so loud I can feel the vibrations. And as soon as I thought to myself, this thing should be on top of me by now, you know, it's that loud, basically. Yeah. And I'm looking for red, green, or white nav lights, anti-collision lights. So this is what I'm zoned in to where the direction this noise is coming from. And now, as soon as I thought to myself, this thing's got to be on top of me by now, one green light come into view from the tree on the left-hand side of the picture, sort of thing, what you can see. And I thought that's got to be one of the lights on the Chinook. And then followed by another green light. And as soon as I see the second green light, I've no news. That's not normal. That's not normal. But it's all in situ with the noise from the Chinook, so it's up there somewhere. You know,
so there's a Chinook above these lights. Yeah.
But here's the thing, basically, the lights I see weren't connected to a Chinook. Each of those green lights turned out to be a substantial black triangular craft, basically nose to tail, you know, feet between them, basically. There was no other lights on these. I'll just see this one green pointer light, and it looked like the same sort of traffic light green, but it was more laser light, you know, rather than LED. It wasn't flashing or anything like that. But as soon as I clocked the first green pointer light, following the green pointer light just came this shape, big black shape out of dark sky, and I'd like just a couple of seconds basically until the first one was like level with me. As soon as I see the back of the craft, it was just lit up like these 5 bars of electrified, like purple light, whatever you want to call it. Followed by another one.
And were you're quite sure that they were silent, Mark? Yeah.
Well, I couldn't tell you because of the deafening noise of the Chinook. This was not a quiet event. This the whole thing had a soundtrack, and it started with that Chinook and it ended with that Chinook.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm getting at. But you know, you definitely think that it was a Chinook that was making the
100%.
Sound.
100%. Right. I know what Chinook sound like. I can hear them starting up on the pan from Odium from here, where I am. Yeah, I'm a proper helicopter nerd. I know what Chinook sounds like. And it was only one. It wasn't multiple engines. You say multiple engines. It wasn't multiple vehicles. I know the Chinook's got 2 engines and 2 rotors. We all know that. But you could tell the difference between like one Chinook flying over and 2 Chinooks flying over. You know, it was one Chinook. Whatever was going on there. Just the fact that the formation was tactical. Yeah, there had to be a reason why that Chinook was sat right over these 2 craft in the way it was. There had to be a reason why these 2 craft were 10 foot above the rooftops. Yeah, and they just cruised over.
Well, you sent me a picture of the back of your garden, so we'll just put that on.
Okay.
Yep. And so this is the direction we're looking. So
that's
talk
it.
us through
you see
that.
the big tree on the left? That's the direction they came from, and they went straight over the left-hand side gable, sort of the roof on that bungalow, basically. Probably about 10 foot high on that telegraph pole on the top of the roof.
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
So that you think they're 10 feet, 20 feet above the rooftops?
Yep. It sounds bonkers, but this is what's so shocking about it. If there'd have been another floor on those houses, they'd have gone through the roof. And yet 2 of these things just slowly cruised over, which all seemed to be well in hand with whoever was providing Overwatch. The direction they're heading.
It's on.
Sorry.
Any of your neighbours see it at the same time?
I haven't, without running around knocking on people's doors, basically. And after that, I was in no fit state to do that. Like I say, I would have reported if I'd have just seen these 2 triangular craft. But then seeing it under complete overwatch of our conventional hardware, it throws it into a whole really shady light. Really, really quite shady.
Yeah.
Just knowing the fact that these things are about, and literally, if our hardware goes up to engage to meet these things, they go to engage them. Our boys seem to invite them into the base. They was literally chauffeured into the base.
So you did a painting of them as well, Mark. So we'll put that up. I know you've got it at the back there, but that gives us a better idea.
That's what it is. It sounds crazy, but that is what happened.
And that tells us everything we need to know, really, doesn't it? And there's
if the light formations, you can't get the gist of it there, but to give you some, I'd say 30-foot minimum, okay, but you're more talking like the size of a garage forecourt roof, a petrol station forecourt roof, which is quite substantial when you're underneath them.
Yeah. And were they tilted like that, Mark?
Well, you see, no, what happened, they seemed to come over straight, okay, and the reason that I've got them tilted is because the first light came into view.
Oh, we'll put them back. Go on. Go on.
And then when the second one came into view, I see the first one just shifted to the left, okay, and then banked up and carried on. And then the second one followed it perfectly. And the reason they banked up is because on the right-hand side of where that bungalow is, just back from that picture, there was a massive tree. And those things navigated the tree,
Which tells us how old they are.
Because I mean, since then they've cut the tree down now, but I've got it on video of them cutting that tree down. When I heard the chainsaws going, I ran out there and took a video of it, because the lowest point over the estate was over their houses, because we've got some big trees around here. You see.
Okay.
Also,
and Martin Abbas, could this be the TR3B, Mark? Anti-grav.
I'm not sold. I know the history of Ed Fouché, the TR3B, the way anti-grav disappeared in the early 50s, and, G engines after the war and stuff like that. I'm not sold. I'm not sold.
Okay.
Not at all. These things were super slick. They was substantial in size, and they looked too flat to occupy people. It doesn't look like the shape of the craft was. There was massive. Bigger than the houses, or wider than the roofs of the houses they was flying over.
So what depth do you think the actual thickness of the wedge would be?
Well, put it this way: if they were 40 foot, from point to point, they were that slick and streamlined, no one would have been able to stand up in them, let alone sit down properly. They were just stretched out, really, really stretched out. They weren't fat. They weren't fat sort of, wedges. These things were sleek, streamlined, super sharp.
Yeah. So Nick says, do you think it was military or something else?
Well, all I can say to that is that the military were providing complete overwatch for this. Which was another shocking thing, basically. I mean, really shocking to know that these things are out there and that the military were guiding them into the base or somewhere close to it. It's pretty scary, especially when after the event, basically, I'm looking back into all the history and any clues I can find on the subject. But at the same time, the phenomenon's still carrying on. So there's still stuff coming out. I mean, I've seen stuff all the time of swirling lights around military bases in the UK, aerospace stunt planes getting all the glory. Stuff like that, and really strange stuff. 2021 was a big year for all these sort of acrobatic lights, and aerospace seems to get all the glory, but yet there seems to be over military bases, all these displays take place where there's no air shows, been advertised or anything like that.
You're getting this activity. And Steve Collins says, I've got to say, I do think these triangles are military in origin, probably back engineered though. I guess it's one of them, Steve. We don't know. Go on.
I do believe there's some truth in the TR3B, but I can pretty much assure anyone that what we're being told about is really, really sanitized of a far greater scenario.
Okay.
I really think.
There's another question here from Zeno. Hi, Mark. When you were stargazing, do you remember having any emotional reaction? Many people report feeling, I think we're looking at humbling or longing. There was
certainly an emotional reaction when the craft got to about there, and I realised that what I was seeing was just far from normal, you know, and that's my it just went to pieces. And
you said you packed your job in then, yeah?
Yeah, I walked away. I walked out of it. It was I had a stupid argument with a guy I thought was a colleague and a friend, and it escalated into something, and he basically done a number on me in front of like the manager, and I knew then, you know, the last time someone had done that to me, I hurt them, so I had to walk. Okay. You know, the way my head was going, I had to walk.
Due to what you'd seen and being mixed up, that's kind of effect.
Yeah, I had to go. Otherwise, someone would take me away in handcuffs. so
right. Well, there's a few questions here. Studio 211. What altitude above the aircraft was the helicopter?
I never saw it. I went outside to see it. Every fibre of my being, you know, I heard it, I felt it. Basically, it was definitely there. It all started with the Chinook. It ended with the Chinook. Basically, as far as the visual sort of, you know, the whole of the nuts and bolts event happened. But I should imagine, from the sound of it, you know, perhaps another 50 feet above, but I don't know. I mean, what I see was completely unsafe. It's the most amazing aerial spectacular thing I've ever seen. You know, I've seen gents doing rolls and all this sort of stuff, you know, helicopters hovering and things like that. I mean, this was the most amazing aerial spectacle I've ever seen, but also the most dangerous as far as aviation laws go and regulations, which makes it
the height.
Yeah, 10 foot, but we're on the 50 foot. Well, 100. I'd say 100 foot the Chinook from the sound of it, 50 foot the craft.
Yeah, and that what you said earlier were quite interesting. That you think the Chinook was kind of over the top of them to mask. It
was that formation was everything about it. You know, just from the loitering, something's going on. Just for I thought it might have been a training exercise or something like that. Do you know, I never expected this. But basically, just by the way that these two things were nose to tail. I mean, literally feet apart. I pulled it apart like a crime scene. I've had to. So I'm sort of thinking, well, Chinook from rotor tip to rotor tip, we talked about it earlier, that's 100 foot. It's 98.8 feet rotor tip to rotor tip, basically. Now, 2 40-foot craft, okay, with a few feet between them. Look at it from an aerial radar sort of point of view. That's the only thing I can take from that. Why was that Chinook sat right on top of them like that? You know, why was it escorting them towards the base? Yeah. You know, so if they were military and they come from that base, they wouldn't need an escort, would they?
No.
And yet we've got the loitering Chinook in a very, very shady formation with these two craft which are not supposed to exist. You know, they're the stuff of myth and conspiracy and legend and stuff. If they knew where they were going, they wouldn't need the Chinook as an escort. You know, this field's half a mile away. They could have came across the fields and not been seen by anyone, or had very little chance, and yet they come over the 10 foot over the tops of the houses. So what's going on?
And is there a history? Has anybody in the area reported any strange craft at the base other than helicopters?
Not at this base. Strange craft and the hunt for military bases, hunt for secret bases. I was to find out a couple of years later, after looking for breadcrumbs for 2 years and trying to keep my head together after the first year. I stumbled across Rich D. Hall from Rich Plant TV and a documentary called Almost Identified Flying Objects, which is where I first saw Colin Saunders, basically. And he was on the hunt, and he was the man's on point. You know, he's conspiracy theorist, he's fringe and all that, and they kicked him off the TV years ago, but he's on point. I assure you, if you want to know the real history of these things, don't look on YouTube, don't look at stuff anything about the TR3B, because that's a load of rubbish. You need to go down that road, unfortunately, go down the rabbit hole. And then I find out the likes of John Hanson and Gary Heseltine, the top two people in the country on this subject, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, you know.
John's got reports of triangular craft from 1901.
Yeah, exactly
so that's definitely not military.
Which is well pre TR3B, whether we like it or not. These craft go back long before the TR3B.
So we've got a question here, Michael and Kirsty. You're not far from Bramley training area. I know that training area very well. Okay, thank you for that.
I know Bramley. Yeah.
Go down a little bit more. You just carry on if you want. And so where's it taking you now? What you know, because obviously it's had a profound effect on you.
Yeah.
It's like 3 or 4 years later.
Yeah.
What are your
It's taken me
intentions?
about 3 years to pull enough information and history on the subject that I can back up what I say. You know, I wouldn't have been this confident about coming on something like this about 2 years ago. But with
No.
what I know now and the history I know now, people can slate my character. They can say I'm talking a lot of rubbish, but they can't change the history and the witnesses. They can't.
No.
When you put it
No,
together
no.
with everything that's going on, it's still unnerving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and from what you saw, and then some of the research that you've done, then Mark, have you identified anything that was similar?
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're pretty few and far between, but they are out there basically. The first one was from on that documentary, Almost Identified Flying Objects by Rich D. Hall, Rich Planet TV, and he solely is a hunt for secret bases and what's going on with.
Yeah.
And what's with
I know, Richard.
Yeah. Well, there was a guy in Andover basically on a display. I think I might have sent you the pictures. There was a guy that he interviewed. Essentially, 8 of these things. First, he saw one, and directly underneath it was another one. And then he said, over the next few minutes, he'd see 4 pairs of these things. Okay. Now, the light formation. Here we go. Talk about light formations. Anyone that sees a triangle craft, they always talk about a point of light at each tip, and maybe something in the middle, whether they be white, orange, whatever. You know, that sort of colours are the main things that we know about these. The way these sort of craft are lit up, if they're lit up at all. With the way the rear end was lit up on these things, I've never seen a equilateral triangle craft with that formation before, you know, until I stumbled across the documentary of Rich D. Hall. Now, the guy from Andover, which is only 30 miles down the road, see 8 of these things. Now, on how he described them, it was a computer-generated image, but each of these craft had a purple rectangular light on the back side at each end, which is pretty much. Yeah, I mean, mine were all in a row, you know, but not the saying that the ones that you see were just 2 rectangular squares or sort of like these purples like lit up on each corner. Okay, and that's a big clue for me. You know, I mean, no matter how we look at it.
Do you know, Mark? It's only just come to mind. There's a bloke in chat who comes up onto cliffs with us, and he might type it in, he might not, but his son and a group of friends walking up Cliff Lane towards Bempton Cliffs. Oh, I'm not sure at year. I hope he types it in for me. But they, at walking pace, followed a triangle quite low in the daytime. I'm not saying it went up the road, but it's sort of pretty parallel, pretty much so. And then just carried on. I
saw a video earlier. Actually, did they film it?
No, they didn't film it. No. I don't know what year it were, to be honest. Something tells me we're going back to 1990s, but I'm not certain.
Okay, well, the clip I saw today, basically, I looked at it. Whatever car it's being filmed from they were driving on the left-hand side of the road, and the countryside looked like an English countryside, basically.
I wrote about it in first book, and I did a little sketch of it, but I ought to have prepared myself for that. So let's have a look at this. What's this then? What speed did they move at? Well, what would you have estimated then,
jogging
Mark?
pace, under 30 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Far too slow for an F-117 Nighthawk or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Carmela, she messaged me earlier, and she said, could they have been F-170 Nighthawks? I went, not a chance. You know, not a cruise at 30 mile an hour, 10 foot above the rooftops. No way. You know, plus we don't have them around here anyway. So,
right.
So for the military to do something like that with hardware like that, it's just unheard of.
Well, Jill Olson's asking, and I know you don't know this, was the Chinook RAF or US?
I couldn't tell you that. Basically, because, you know, but when you can't see them, if they're flying dark with no nav lights on, basically, that in itself, and in a time of when we're not at war, you know, what's the reasoning for that?
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You would have thought if they're not doing anything shady, they'd have anti-collision lights on, wouldn't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So definitely, 100%. But all I could say was whether was the Chinook ours or was it theirs, I don't know. All I could tell you was on a direct heading to RAF Odium, which is 4 miles away, you know, and this, whatever those 2 craft were doing, they had total overwatch of our tech. You know, that's what I can say.
Unless it is military tech that were just being tested. But listen, Yeah, no, and there's nobody better placed than you. You saw it, you experienced it.
Yeah.
Did it, after you'd seen it then, or seen them, Mark, did it make you, I don't know, have a little run around the area and the country lanes and observe it?
When I calmed down after they'd gone out of sight, basically, and I'd actually calmed down, the first thing I done was running and wrote everything down.
Yeah.
I wanted to remember everything as much as I could, basically, and once I'd written it down, I could continue to run around the flat, basically, But yeah, it's still shocking. It is still unnerving. And after 4 years of researching everything I can about the TR3B, the so-called TR3B, and the real history of these black triangular craft, I'm pushed towards other, and that's what makes it unnerving.
You think it's something of non-human intelligence, let's say, not alien.
Whether it's back engineered tech. I mean, there's one theory I thought about. If there has been any alliances or deals done between off-world entities and our governments, I should imagine a part of the deal was basically that if we need to go where they go, and to do that, we would need their tech. Maybe it would be a part of the deal. I have no idea. But these things look far from conventional. Their flight characteristics, the shape, they were too slick, too smooth. I mean, there's nothing poking out of these things.
No. So. And Steve Collins, do you think these triangles could be holographs projected?
Here we go. Now we're right down the rabbit hole, okay? Because I've had to take that on board. Are we going towards Bluebeam and stuff like that now? Are we? I do have a theory with these craft. Now they're being used. If these craft are ours, okay, they're being used by our government in a very clandestine way. Now I think if holograms are going to be projected from any vehicles, this would be the vehicle of choice you'd use for Bluebeam. I'm not saying it is. I've had to consider everything.
Yeah.
We know these things work in packs and pairs. We know these things can materialize, dematerialize. I've got a lot of information from Finn Hanley's free sightings from Mom of 2007, 2008. And the information I got from that was really important, which goes towards, it tells you about the different light formations, different light flight characteristics, all sorts. And they're far from conventional and far from military,
Right.
Everything about
them. I know we've said this, but we'll do it again for Rod. It was August, weren't it? 2021.
August 30th, 2021, yeah.
August the 30th. And I only put it up because I like that thumbnail.
I don't know if it's any use to you, but I mean, this was last year. I came across it might be on some paranormal channel or something like that. But there was a guy, and he said, it just came up randomly. He said on January the 21st, just one day alone in 2021, there were 5 black triangular UFO sightings reported in this country, just on that one day alone. Do you know what I mean? Whereas
in different parts of the country.
In the UK. Yep.
Yeah, but I mean that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, and you do seem to have waves of these things. I mean, they called it the Belgian wave, didn't they?
We've got the Belgian wave.
What year was that?
1997 was a big year. 2007, 2008 seemed to be a big year, and 2021 turned out to be a big year for these things as well, from my perspective.
What do you think? I mean, obviously you might not have any views, but some of these things that are similar, but similar characteristics, but the diamond shaped, boomerang shaped. Do you think? Have you looked into some of those type objects as well?
I've been solely concerned with black triangles in the UK. And more than one of them, multiple craft, basically, and the smaller ones, not because these things weren't the size of a football pitch, but it could have quite easily gone back to something the size of that, for all I know. But there was a guy in Collins' book, the sorts of different variations of angled, different triangle angles, different colours, different flight characteristics. There's so many. There's just so many.
There were a guy in 1990s. I don't think he's with us anymore, called David Spoor. Some people in chat will remember this guy. And he were avidly filming and documenting things, and he'd managed to film triangles. And I received some of it on video cassette, and I've still got them somewhere, video cassettes of David Spoor's triangles that he'd actually filmed, because obviously back in 1990s, we hadn't got the cameras. We hadn't got cameras that we've got today.
Any video footage of black triangles is is dubious. Do you know what I mean? Whether it be the older stuff is more reliable. Unfortunately, it's not so detailed, but the older stuff is more reliable. Definitely, it's got less chance of being manipulated.
Well, that's true, but I think you'll always get somebody shouting, no matter what you do. I mean, we spend loads of time up on the cliff tops and around different areas, and we've filmed numerous things, and a lot of it we've not bothered putting out, not because we don't want people to look at it, but you think to yourself, you know, it's just becoming the norm. I don't mean we're filming stuff every time we go up there, but it's just becoming the norm, and then it's a bit soul destroying when you do put something out,
especially when you're trying to get something across, which is a big deal, you know, which is not normal, and which is, if people are trying to tell you about these sort of stuff, you should really listen, rather than they just see you as a crackpot, basically.
Absolutely.
But until you see it, it's like I say, until I was already been a believer, but there's a difference between believing and then knowing. It's completely different. And this,
so you know, we've got Studio 21 said, so the Chinook was 50 above the triangles and you couldn't see it. I should imagine
from the sound of it, yeah.
Or was the line of sight blocked by the craft?
Well, I wasn't. I went outside to see a Chinook. Okay. Well, the time the lights came in, they say all my focus was on those lights basically, and that took all my attention. Yeah. So my eyesight was focused, but all my other senses, you know, I could feel myself vibrate basically, and the noise of it. All my other senses telling me that Chinook was directly above those craft for whatever reason, and that reason to me was Overwatch.
Yeah, absolutely.
No other way around it. If those things were uninvited guests, that it would have been a completely different air show out there, completely different. I assure you, those things were invited one way or the other.
Yeah, and you're probably right. And obviously you're thinking that the Chinook is masking them from, but then again, if it were a military operation and they'd been invited, why would a Chinook need to mask them from radar?
Civil aviation radar.
Okay.
Yeah. Civil aviation, air traffic, a cover story. I don't know. You know?
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just throwing it out there.
There was. I've tried to pull it apart like a crime scene because that's exactly what it was, and that's the only thing I can take through it. You know, there's still massive questions of why they would that Chinook was waiting for these things. It must have been to be hanging about for so long. Where they came from, where they came out of a water source, I have no idea. You know, but the fact is, when they turned up, the green lights were attached to two massive triangular craft, basically, and from the way the sound was, basically, the way it came and went. With the, you know, under this event, it just matched the craft matched the sound and the vibrations of that Chinook perfectly.
You know what I find interesting about this is the fact that they were so low, and if they were invited or if they were testing some kind of military tech,
why would it makes no sense?
It makes no sense. Negotiating trees, you know.
Yeah, it's like they do. You shifted like that and banked up around the big tree. Yeah. I mean, it makes no sense, you know. Colin Saunders will even tell you that about it. It makes no sense why you would fly your black projects like that. No sense at all.
Well, Colin Saunders, if I remember rightly, because he came on Truth Proof a few years ago, I think he said he's kind of reared up.
He said it tilted up like a submarine. And he said there was two of them. He said there was a smaller one. He didn't know whether the smaller one went back to the big one. It was really mainly about the big one, basically.
Yeah.
But you'll get a lot of information from Finn Hanley's sightings and that as well. There was a wealth of information, you know. All three times was two of these craft, but each time lit up in different light formations, showing different flight characteristics, you know.
Yeah.
And he got all the details, you know. He's got his own YouTube channel. You can quite easily find his deep dive on the Post Disclosure World podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's somewhere for people
all the
to look.
information's out there.
A few years ago, me and Pete were up at Bempton once again on cliff tops. Quite by chance, looked out. Yeah, East Yorkshire, near Bridlington.
Do you know, I just interrupt you there. Carmela said to me when I spoke to her on the phone, she says, "Well, I told her about you. It was you talked about the black triangle craft going up and down the side of the cliff up around there."
That's right. Yeah.
And I mentioned that to her. She said, "Oh, we're going up out there up to Yorkshire in the middle of the night. Do you want to come up there with us?" I went, "No, I don't." She said, "No, I didn't even go looking for these things." And then I don't want to go traipsing around the moors in the middle of the night.
We got some good footage of one a few years ago, myself and Pete, and it was not at 45. It was a shallower angle, and it just slowly stood on end.
Yeah,
and you got 3 points of light that went out to sea, and we filmed it on a Psionics camera. It was far better when we first looked at it, but a bit like you you're not looking for a Chinook once you've seen these. You're fixed on them. We were kind of fixed on it, and we've got cameras. Why aren't we filming it? We're trying to decipher what we're looking at first.
Well, I mean, I'm not that much of a nerd that I'm going to take my camera outside and film a Chinook anyway.
Well, we are.
Outside to see, you know.
But you know,
I'll see it every day, you know.
On the intro, all them bits of film are what we've filmed.
Yeah.
Do you know different things up there, and there's loads and loads more. But I think 1984 there were some fishermen just off Barmston, which is 6-7 miles away from where I'm sat now. Fishing boats just in fishing ground, quite a few of them, and they're looking towards land, 6-7 miles out, and they can all see the communication with radios, a diamond-shaped silver diamond, very low over the sand dunes at Barmston, and they're talking about that. I know that's not a triangle, but this thing turned on itself, on its own axis, and shot out straight over the top of all the boats, and all radio communication just kind of cut as it passed over. You know, so what that was, I don't know. But
it's after seeing that and hunting down the history, I'm more inclined to believe what's in here, and everything about that, than what we're told of any of these triangle craft on YouTube or anything like that.
Well, it's just like yourself. I mean, Colin's done the homework and you know, put a lot.
He'll tell you the same. He'll tell you the same about the alleged TR3B. Basically, you know, when I hear stories like Ingo Swan, and Mr. Axelrod, basically, and triangle craft coming out of the water, and supposedly being by aliens mining the moon. You know, the tall whites were supposed to fly around in these things. You know, everything you hear in books like this is far from TR3B, far from it, and I'm inclined to believe that now.
Right, another question. I think we've probably done this. Paranormal visitors. I like the name that Lee's got there. We've changed from Paranormal Beast here to Paranormal Visitors. Did anyone else talk about it? See it that night. Also, did it hit the local papers?
Here we go. Okay, right now. There was two people I could really speak to the day after. One of them was listening to me now, is my mate, my best mate, Ailey. Hello, Ailey. And my ex-girlfriend now, Sarah. So I was who can you talk to about this sort of subject, basically? So I told these two people the next day. Sarah done a bit of homework, looked on social media, and the Basingstoke Gazette online, basically, something had been spotted a couple of weeks before, and these were these swirling lights, which look like your aerosparks, basically. But they're over somewhere in Basingstoke. There's no air shows. These are flying over a cornfield, nothing advertised or anything like that. Now, I mean, literally, I found out about that. She sent me that 3 days after my event, basically. And working it back, that was within a month before my sighting. You've got these two swirling lights over Winklebury. On the online Gazette. Now, because, like I say, I'd have come away from it optimistic if it hadn't been under complete overwatch of the military, basically, or someone in the military. You know, this is what made it really shady. To think that these things are flying around, and yet it's all under control of our government or someone in it.
Well, they know about it. I'm not. Listen, Mark, I'm not saying what I know. I'm just assuming they know about it. They clearly know about it, but it makes you wonder if they've got any control over it, though, doesn't it?
Well, this is it. You know, which is why I'm pushed towards these things were, I don't know, being
otherworldly.
Well, I'm saying it's just the fact that the military seem to be controlling the whole situation. But everything about it, flight characteristics, the craft involved, the way it all came about was just wrong. Just wrong. Everything about it didn't make any sense. It still doesn't.
Right, O'Connell says, Mark, you're not talking rubbish. Well, we don't think that, O'Connell. I'm sure you realise that. Witnessed one myself, and it was a weird circumstance. Thank you.
It would have been weird on their own, but again, under full control of someone in our military, it makes it very shady.
Let's just have a look here, and let's just. I think I saw Nick's in. Alienate UK, Beware the Moon Lads, Mike Disabled Welshman. I thought I saw our Laura in then. I see Gemma's in. Hi, Laura. Yeah, Laura must be in. Hi, Laura. Dragonborn. I'm just doing a few names as I look round down here for questions. Let's just have a quick look, see if we've got any more before we just move right. Let's have a look at this, Mark. Could the Chinook be putting out a holo? Do you know something, Richard? I thought that.
I've had to think. I've taken it on board. I've had to think about it myself. No. You're more likely to get holograms put out from these triangular craft than the Chinook forming a hologram of these two craft.
You makes a good point, though. Because you could hear the Chinook, you couldn't see it, and I know nothing about holograms, but I thought, could that be?
Well, I'll tell you what. No matter what you think about a hologram, I've never seen a black hologram.
No, fair enough. No,
holograms usually come in colours, not black.
I don't know enough about holograms to sort of go into detail there, Matt. Well, let's just keep skimming down these. Ian Schofield. Let's have a look. Do you think they could have been remotely controlled from someone in the Chinook, as in drones?
Why would you have to control a drone in this day and age from a Chinook? That doesn't make any sense. Does it to you even?
No, the scenario could be, let's assume that they were some kind of military drone that are being controlled from somewhere else. I don't know, somewhere on that airbase. Then you could see the reasoning. I'm not saying it is. I haven't got all the answers. I'm down to like a 2 or 3 horse race now, basically. But each of these main suspects are more fantastic than the event itself. Do you know what else? Do you know what I'm also thinking? And you'll probably know more about helicopters than me. But the downdraft from the Chinook, it must have been quite high because it didn't disturb.
You would have thought basically. You know, I couldn't feel a downdraft, but it was making a lot of noise. And here's the thing, basically, there's a difference between what noise a Chinook makes when it's empty and not under load, or rather than when it's full of weight and under load. There's a big difference in sound. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if this Chinook had gone out to meet these craft, it wouldn't have gone out there empty. Their boys would have gone out there tooled up. Yeah. So,
right. Okay.
If that makes any sense.
It'll make sense to people who know about helicopters. It don't make loads of sense to Paul, but it doesn't mean that you're not making sense. Let's have a look. Beware the moon, lads. Brilliant experience, Steve. Have you ever seen a Chinook flying over without lights previously? Good point. And that in itself is an unusual occurrence. Did you feel or sense anything as the craft flew over?
The only way I could think that a Chinook would be flying dark is in a covert operation where the lights would have infrared on or night vision, and all your lights are turned off. That's the only way a Chinook that I could possibly think. I mean, if anyone knows of any other reason, please let me know. But,
so where do you take this now, then, Mark? Because obviously it's consumed you a little bit.
I have no idea. The only reason is because the way it panned out with our conventional tech is unheard of. Like I say, you hear about triangular craft and the military involved, they chase them off. They're not escorting them in. Do you know what I mean? And then we go back to other sightings, which I've been looking for. Anything which of any similarity. And then the big one is Finn Hanley, Monmouth 2007, 2008. And that will just show you that everyone thinks that these triangular craft have got a light on each corner and one in the middle. His first sighting was 2 of those lit up like that. The other 2 completely different, 4 massive blue oblong lights across the back, and now that drew my attention. Yeah, because aviation lights, conventional stuff is red, white, green. Yeah, if you're seeing other colours in the sky, it's not normal. It's not normal unless it's a stunt plane or something like that, or aerosparks. Do you know what I mean? But it's just not normal. That's massive similarities. And I mean, Finn said about these. He told me they started off as fizzing balls of light. He pulled his car over, got out of his car, turned around. There was 2 huge black triangles sat there with these big blue lights underneath. Basically, what he said about them, they had other lights all around them, and he said that these things were linked up. Basically, he said they sort of rippled and went translucent, and then came back. Basically, all the lights changed suddenly from all colours on both craft immediately. Like he said, it's like someone just turned it on a dimmer switch at the same time. So we know these craft are linked up somehow, whether they work as a hive mind or something like that, I don't know. He also said that as they moved off, one went one way, one went another way, and they changed shape. They turned from equilateral triangles to more extended ones. Do you know what I mean? So, sounds nuts.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, 1998, and I'll jump to the Hummingbee incident, and the night before the flying saucer arrived. there were 3 of the guys stood outside the industrial unit, saw 3 black triangles moving in from sea. No lights on them, nothing.
Well, here's the thing, you see. This is another thing I'll talk about the lights, okay? No, whether everyone thinks the lights on each corner or the centre is propulsion or anything like that, you know, I'm surprised you've not said to me, do I think what was coming out the back of that craft was propulsion? Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of people would normally think that. I don't think that at all. Not at all. No, because these things seem about to be able to fly about without lights on any corner or any position on their craft. They can do this. So why would they need that to propel them?
But well, have you formed any opinions on what the lights are there for then?
I have my own opinions on what's going on with these lights. You know, I mean, we see here's a theory for you. We see the classic light formation on these craft, basically, okay, and then we see a lot of other triangular stuff with really weird, different light formations. You know, whether it be LEDs, green, red, blues, whatever underneath, or just lights in unfamiliar formations on these craft. What is the point of that? Or I have no idea, but I sort of have my reasons. And it's sort of, when actually researching the history of this, you've got Finn Hanley's 3 sightings each time of these 2 craft, but different light formations. Now I've got to take into account, or they have to take on board, are these 3 pairs of completely different craft, or are they the 3 pairs of the same craft showing different light formations? What's going to be more? And to me, it's they're the same craft, for what reasons unknown, showing up different light formations.
Okay,
that's not, you know, I can't prove or disprove that. All I can go by is history. So
I asked Mark this actually before we come on air, but it's good to get it out there, just to put that thumbnail on again of that swan, because I like that. Have you requested a freedom of information RAF regarding the activity?
No. Like I said, I thought you asked me that, and I thought about actually going up there, banging on the base commanders, and what the hell is going on. But I don't want to get onto it. I don't like the authorities.
Well, we've got the date. We've got the date, Mark. August 30th, 2021.
Now, I spoke to someone about, now RF Odium seems to be a bit of a black spot. I mean, you don't know how it goes with Flight Tracker, but my mate Adi, I don't know if you're still here, Adi, but I did have some students come and do a documentary. It was only a 6-minute documentary, and it was a load of rubbish. They'd done a real poor job. I give them all the details, and I said to them, "You better like, do this subject justice," and they didn't. You know, B minus at best if they was getting marked on it. But
the sighting that I talked about earlier by Pete's, it was actually Pete's son who saw this triangle, and I thought it was 1990s, 1995, walking pace up Cliff Lane on I think it was a bright sunny day, and it just went. They followed it. And it just went straight out to sea and just disappeared. But I'm sure Pete, and I did speak to his son, said that this had a row of lights at the back as well, which is interesting, and no sound.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I mean, they're all clues to me. I have to take it all on board and try and form a picture, basically. I mean, even going back to you're aware of a documentary that came out called Rise of the TR3B?
No.
With that guy who runs a 3rd phase of the moon, basically. But it had Richard Dole in it, and a couple of David Marler was in it, I think, a couple of other people. But they did use a video clip in that documentary, and it was filmed in Swindon. And this was a daytime sighting in Swindon, and this was a couple of weeks, basically mid-August, before I had my sighting of these 2. And there was just one of these things hovering in the middle of a roundabout in Swindon in the daytime. I mean, they used it in that documentary.
It's fabulous. Just before we go on, I know Karen Bierman sent us a donation tonight. Thank you. I can see Jan and Andrew. I've really appreciated.
Money well spent.
Well, it's just great to have such great support. And anybody that I've missed, I apologise. Just the Truth Proof books, as I say every week. If you want to purchase the books, they're on truthproof.uk. If you've got a report that you want to put in, truthproof.uk, and between myself and Don Lodge, we'll get that report put on. The Wolflands DVD, which I've done with Les Drake, and I'm really proud of that work that me and Les did. That's available on Amazon Prime, or if you go to truthproof.uk and put an order in tonight, it'll be posted tomorrow. That's as much as I can say. And if you've not pressed like and subscribe, consider doing it. It helps us. And let's just see if we've got a few more questions here, because this has flown, this, Mark, you know. Absolutely. Martin Abbas, thank you, Martin. I'm just looking. Let's have a look. Jan and Andrew, let's see what this says. I don't believe in back engineering, Sparks says. I'm an electronics engineer and we have real problems developing superconductors to keep them stable. Did the craft shimmer or appear fuzzy at the edges? Thanks, Sparks.
Okay, right. Now, here's the thing. Right now, from actually the whole event took about 10 minutes, which of 9 minutes and 30 seconds was just listening for the Chinook. The last 30 seconds was just mind blowing, basically. So when they come out of the dark sky, I was transfixed on that green laser point of light, basically. Okay, so that's what all my focus took on. So you've got to think about, basically, you know, I've looked at the green point of light, and then I've seen the two sides of the first black triangle sort of blocking out the night sky. Yeah, and when it gets to the back, you've got these 4 or 5 bars, basically, of rectangular segments, or more like slivers. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Running from point to point down the rear edge of the craft. But the light wasn't coming out. It wasn't ejecting flames or heat or anything like that. All that light source, or whatever it was, or energy or whatever, was contained within that craft. Yeah. So I've got the dark sky, I've got the green point of light, and then I've got this purple lightsaber sort of like effects basically across the back of these things. So with the time I had, you know, it could have had a glow around it. I don't. It might have been just the way that the edges of the black craft just were, you know, contrasting out against the light of night sky. I don't know, you know. But all I can say is that they moved in, and these things own the environment. They own it.
It's a strange one, that, you know, and that's something that it always just jumps out to me as a real peculiar one when you're talking about the lights that were on them weren't illuminating anything. I did 4 hours this morning on Coast to Coast, and we talked about that.
Is Art Bell still with us? Is he?
No, but I did. I had 6 o'clock till 10 o'clock this morning. I did Coast to Coast.
Because he had his own black triangle sighting, didn't he? Him and his wife had his own black triangle sighting.
You know more about this than me, Mark. You're the black triangle.
Earlier, Art Bell's actually seen one for himself. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
But let's just see if we've got any more. Let's get rid of that. Let's just have a quick rundown here. I apologise if we don't get through all these questions. Interesting account of a black triangle in 2022. Slow, low, quiet, hum, and some missing time. I'm taking then, Rachel, that obviously you've had that account of the black triangle, and I know that I've had emails off Rachel and had some incredible correspondence which we've shared over years. So yeah, no doubt we'll be talking again quite soon. It's good for you, Mark, this, because you just see extent of the people out there that have had these sightings and these reports. Let's have a look at this. Sometimes people see craft of that size in the painting. When they go inside, it's huge. So you never know. There could have been people. You make a good point there.
Yeah, no, there's talk of that, basically. You know, I've heard stories where alien craft land and they're tiny, and then little people get out of them and they suddenly, you know, become.
We've got to have a reason for Doctor Who's TARDIS. It's got to have come from somewhere, hasn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
But
all I can tell you is, didn't know that these craft were not built, like they're designed around human crew. They didn't like that.
Okay.
No, as big as they were.
We'll just see if we can fit any more in, if there is any paranormal visitors. Thank you very much, sir. That's I see Gemma there. Blue Shift, Rob, Laura Sinclair. Let's have a listen. We've got 2 Sinclairs in here tonight. Moondog, I think that's Lee. And this, if it is, he filmed something brilliant at Danes Dyke a few years ago. What's Linny got to say here? Let's have a look. Paul, yeah, that's correct, Ian. Jack will be the man to tell us about the Chinooks flying at 80 foot above houses. He knows his stuff because he worked on helicopters. Spoke to him tonight, funnily enough, Ian, and I'll tell you later. I'll call you later. But he's okay. But I'll call you later. So yeah, we'll get Jack on and he can tell us about that. And always good to get different people in. Al Durham, let's have a look. Mark, we've done that one. Al, I didn't read it. Sorry, mate. But I think that somebody will be doing, probably Al Durham.
Right. Okay. It would be interesting to know. It would be interesting to know. I mean, I have no idea how to go about these sort of things, basically.
Well,
this is not my skill set.
I know Al would, and I'll tell you what, if you want somebody to,
you know,
if you want somebody to if you want
Here's
something
another
to
thing,
research
basically.
for you, he'll do it. It's good.
Yeah, well, here's another thing. If he wants to do that, okay. I mean, here's one thing I need to know. Do even a Chinook carry a transponder? Okay, because when these guys come and done the documentary the other year, my mate Aidy was with me, and he had Flight Tracker on his phone. Okay, and we could see Chinooks in the air. They weren't coming up on Flight Tracker.
Right.
So how'd you work that out?
Well,
You know?
well, obviously, if they have transponders, they've turned them off, haven't they? You know that
Yeah.
maybe I don't
You
know.
know? Yeah.
Let's have a look. What Deb Shaw says: black triangles are often associated, yet with the 1990s flaps, are they still seen as frequently?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I think they. I wouldn't
They
know
are.
about as frequently, Deb, but they are being seen still.
It all depends how you look. You know, research the subject, but there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, I've got a whole book here just on triangles, basically, just in the UK, and just from basically the pre TR3B, but from the 70s up till now. You know,
I think you've wore that
150.
book out, haven't you? I don't think
It's
there's
my
much.
Bible. It's my Bible. Honestly.
Yeah, well, very good. Let's just let's have a look here. So it's Mary in, my wife's in even. I can't believe that. Well, let's have a look. What if the Chinook wasn't there and the soundtrack was coming from the triangles?
Well, that's even more weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
It possibly could have been.
Yeah.
Do you know why that would be? But whatever they were trying to make a noise like helicopter, they were certainly heading for a helicopter base. But
yeah, if what Steve said had a grain of truth in it, then that would probably place them as something military, wouldn't it?
Well, or something deceptive. You know, if there is such a thing as blue beam and the military are in control of these craft, it would be your perfect choice of craft to pull off blue beam.
Jill
That's
Olsen.
just my opinion.
Were the blue lights from the propulsion?
No, we talked about this basically. That there was like so purple. When I see them super close, basically like that, it was like a hot pink or a purple. But there was also like other sort of flickers of the ultraviolet spectrum in that.
Yeah.
You know, it seemed to be. It was like someone got a rainbow and electrified it. If that makes any sense.
No, you've painted a picture there. To be honest with you, mate.
I tell you, I said this was the main event. Now I'd seen these things before. I just caught them. That video I showed you, where I was doing a bit of swearing on the side of the road. Yeah, I just caught them like the 2 seconds, and I was like a double take. What was that? And it was like two lightsabers. Imagine the purple lightsabers, just like that. They was hugging the treetops again on a direct course, direct heading for RF Odin, but coming from a different direction. Now, but now that time then, they was at the top of the trees, but they were following the power lines. Whether the power lines have got anything to do with it, I have no idea. As far as I know, these things, they might use the power lines as a map, you know, to charge up off. I have no idea. There's talk about these things hovering above the Transco towers up northern end of the country. I've got photos in the book, got pictures in the book. You know, they seem to draw energy off the power lines or just use them as markers. I have no idea. But both times, I mean, even when they came over from the main event, we've got power lines which match their direction basically and where they were going. And if you follow the power lines, they'll probably go really, really close to RF Odin. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that kind of makes sense then, doesn't it? And
it's just another thing I have to take on board. You know, I want answers. No one's going to give me answers. So,
well, you know, what do you think you're going to be the person that ultimately gets the answers then?
Well, I don't know if I want any more answers, to be honest with you. I just know that I've seen it from a side which is really unnerving. You know, the fact that these things are out there. I mean, this is the thing that someone would go out to look for above Broome Lake, not unawarely be buzzed by two of these things in a sleepy village
village.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Did the speed of the craft change, or was it steady? Would you estimate they were about the same size?
The only thing that changed was the course where they had to avoid a large tree. Yeah. That's it. That's the only way they deviated from going straight across. So
I think we're looking at a light here. Beware the moon. How long could you see them before they moved out of sight? So,
well, basically, the picture you saw, I had them from. I had both of them in front of me. I was virtually like underneath. They was just the far side of the next door neighbour's garden, so I was virtually underneath them basically, and I had them in both in full view, the pair of them. You know.
Yep. Okay.
So, I mean, the way they cruised over, it took probably 15 seconds from the come into view and then go out of view, but that was enough. That was enough to get all the details. You know.
Okay.
I was literally what you see in that picture is basically how it was.
let's just try this one, Lee. Because we're tight for time. The Bigfoot and Dogman show. I've not seen this guy in before, but thanks for joining us. Hi guys. If the government can't control these sightings and they are alien, remember we'll use the alien word lightly because we don't, we're not necessarily from outer space.
Yep.
Do you believe they are nefarious?
I do believe that something shady's going on. To see them like that, and then work the history back, just to connect someone in our military with these vehicles, it's unnerving. It really is, and with all the history and what I've learned, and I'm still swayed towards not ours.
If that's how it's left you feeling. The studio 2-on-1. If these craft were silent, why you make a good point here? Why draw attention to them by flying a Chinook?
I can't answer that. All I can tell you is I heard a Chinook went outside, and that's what I got. Basically,
Do you feel like you're getting grilled here, Lee?
No, sorry, I want to be grilled. I want to be grilled. You can ask me the most awkward questions, and please, anyone ask me, because this subject needs really pulling into the spotlight. It's stagnant. What the information we know, and we're very, very limited to what we've been told on social media. Everyone will tell you it's government back engineered. Anyone who's been witness these things, it'll be completely the opposite.
Absolutely. I'm just going to keep scrolling down and see if we can just. Right. I don't think this is what Jan and Andrew said. Did they rotate, dip, or changing height?
No, they were on a straight course basically until the front one had to negotiate the big tree, and then it shifted left, banked up around the left hand side of the roof, and the one behind it followed it perfectly, like they was on rails, perfectly.
Right. Research and witness. Are you hoping to see them again, or was once enough?
I'd like to see them again, but not as close as that, really. And like I say, it wouldn't matter now. It's just knowing that the connection between these craft and the military. I don't know what that connection is, but that's a definite connection. Like a rich planet on the almost identified finally. The guy was hunting for secret bases and on the trail of this 15, 20 years ago. Do you know? And just there was one bit that really, really sort of hit home. And when Rich D. Hall said, he says, no one has ever seen any of these things ever land at a military base. Yeah, you're not going to get much closer than that. And that was unnerving to hear that from Rich D. Hall's lips. That's quite scary.
Yeah,
it throws the whole subject to a completely different light for me.
And Steve Collin, well done, Matt, for reliving your experience. Takes guts to do it, and you've had no shortage of questions. We don't normally get this many questions.
Keep them coming, mate. Keep them coming.
Well, I've just got down to the bottom of them there, and so where do you see it? I've asked you this before, but where do you see it going, Mark? Because you've researched and back researched all the triangles over the decades. What can you do now?
All I can go by, I can't push the issue. Well, I can push the issue. I can push the issue forward for this country, for UK disclosure and a lot. And the way I think the only way into decent conversation with any politicians, you use the triangles as your doorway in. There's enough information and witnesses and history. This is still going on in this country. It's still, and this is why I'm talking about it now, because it's an ongoing thing. The thing's still playing out. Whether it's got anything to do with disclosure, what's going on. If you wanted to be deceptive and pull off holograms and weird shapes and patterns in the sky, you'd use these craft. Yeah.
It's A. Young says, one issue I have with the whole UAP from outer space thing, and don't forget, A. Young, we're not necessarily saying these things are from outer space. A lot of people want them to be. Why would they have or need lights? Lights are man-made. How do you? I'd take issue with that. Actually, how do you know lights are man-made? How can we predict or know what any other intelligence could have developed? And that's not having a go at you, but that's a bit of a lights are man-made.
It's just right. It's everyone's got their own opinion, basically. I'm still looking for answers. All I can do is try and. I've been shown a very strange piece to this puzzle. An unexpected piece, and that's what I'm trying to work from. So,
but at the same point, A. Young makes a good point that, and I'm not just talking about the craft you saw, UFOs, unexplained craft in general. Why would they need to show themselves with using lights? Why project lights?
Well, the same way we do in cars at night time, so we don't crash.
Does it tell us that they've got no regard for us or what we do? Do you know?
I have no idea. Well, all I can say, right, is we know these things can fly about without any illumination at all, but they also fly about illuminated, in different light sequences. So I have no. All I can tell you is these craft fly without lights and they fly with lights. Yeah, for reasons unknown. So.
Right. Well, we've already done this one, Paranormal Visitors, but Banana is asking, where did Mark's encounter happen? It was a little village called Hook. Am I correct, Mark?
Yeah, in Hampshire. Yeah, near
in Hampshire, here in the UK, on August the 30th, 2021. And I think that we've just about covered everything there, Mark, and it's been brilliant. You've left it no stone unturned in what you've looked for afterwards.
Oh, there's still plenty of stones to be turned over, Paul.
Well, would you like to come on and gather a few more bits of information and come on and talk to us again?
Yeah, brilliant. If there's people that want to pull the subjects into the light because it needs it, it really needs updating, especially with things that are going on, the connection with the military. Something's not right, in my opinion. After seeing them like that and all the history, what is going on? Really,
absolutely. Well, I'd love to speak to you again about this. And if you want to speak, I don't know, during the week or next few weeks and have a natter, please get in touch.
Oh, you got my number. It's been a pleasure anytime.
Excellent. And I'd like to thank Paranormal Visitors, as in Lee, Gemma, Alison, for doing moderating, everybody who's supported us in chat. I mean, we've had over 300 in, I believe, tonight. So you've obviously interested people, Mark, and interested me as well. So from myself, good night. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Oh, wow. Saw it twice, so I was like, oh my God.
That was just weird.
I always used to see a light coming up,
Yeah.
like a headlight, but there was nobody there.